It was supposed to be just another rushed Tuesday in New York. But one dumb mistake flipped everything upside down. Lee was late. Again. Hair thrown up in a messy bun. Coffee stain on her shirt. Phone buzzing nonstop with texts from her boss. All she wanted was to change clothes real quick before her meeting. She rushed into the gym, flashed her ID, and walked straight down the hallway, barely looking where she was going. That's when she made the mistake. She pushed open a blue door. Without thinking, took 2 steps inside and froze. Silence. She'd walked into the men's locker room. And right in front of her, him, a guy, towel around his waist, wet hair dripping, body like he used to be an athlete. He froze too, looked at her, surprised, maybe curious, but calm. And her, she blanked, forgot how to even say sorry. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought." She stepped back, tripped on the wet mat. Almost. Fell. He held onto the towel with one hand and covered a laugh with the other. "Hey, it's okay. Happens more than you think. Lear, that doesn't happen. Nobody just walks into the men's locker room by accident." Not really, but the way he said it, so easy, so relaxed, made her want to stay there for just one more second. But she bolted, face bright red, heart pounding. She spent the rest of the day trying to shake it off, but his face, that look, wouldn't leave her mind. And the craziest part? She had no idea that awkward little moment was the beginning of the biggest story of her life. The next day, Lee decided to work from a coffee shop near the gym. She was still embarrassed about the whole locker room thing, but tried to pretend like it never happened. She picked a quiet corner, opened her laptop, ordered a double cappuccino, and tried to focus. But then she glanced at the line, and there he was, the locker room guy. Ryan. She immediately looked down, like that would somehow make her invisible. Her heart started racing again. No way, of all places. He looked around, saw her, smiled, and walked straight toward her. Panic inside, cool on the outside. "Hey, we kinda ran into each other yesterday, huh?" She gave a nervous little laugh. "Yeah, you could say that." He put his coffee down on her table. Without asking, "I promise I don't usually walk around in just a towel." That made her laugh for real. "Good to know." He pulled out a chair and sat down. "Ryan, nice to meet you. Lee." At first, the conversation was a little awkward, but then it just flowed. They talked about random stuff. Shows they liked, books they never finished, how insanely cold New York had been that week. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Lee caught herself thinking, why does it feel like I've known him for years? Over the next few days, Lee found herself going back to that same coffee shop more often. Sure, she told herself it was for the cappuccino, but deep down, she knew she was hoping to run into Ryan again. And he showed up. Again, casually, like it was no big deal. This time he was there first. Sitting with a book open on the table, something about American history. She noticed, and he smiled like he'd been waiting for her. "You into history too? Or still trying to avoid me because of the locker room incident?" She laughed, a little embarrassed. "Depends. Are you still walking around in towels?" The conversation flowed easier this time, natural. Before she knew it, an hour had flown by. After that day, they started seeing each other more often. A casual hey here, a shared coffee there. Then came the texts, memes, voice notes. Small things, but they started stacking up, like a light drizzle that soaks you without warning. Lee caught herself smiling at her phone more than she'd like to admit. And the weirdest part? She felt lighter, like something heavy had quietly lifted off her shoulders. She still wasn't sure if all of this was just a sweet coincidence, or fate gently knocking on her door in disguise. What started as a funny coincidence had slowly turned into something harder to ignore. Lee and Ryan never made official plans. Things just happened. A quick coffee after work, a random sandwich on a park bench, a walk with no destination after. A rough day. They didn't try to impress each other. They just were. They talked about everything. And about nothing. She told him stories about the chaos of advertising crazy clients, insane deadlines. He laughed and said teaching high schoolers was its own kind of war, just with less coffee and more drama. But over time, the small talk started to give way to something deeper. She told him how she almost quit her career at 23 after a burnout, left her unable to get out of bed. He told her he once dreamed of going pro as an athlete, but gave it all up after losing his sister in a car crash. She was my best friend, he said, eyes downcast. After she died, nothing felt more important than teaching history. Lee went quiet. For once, she didn't feel the need to respond. Just listen. After a moment, she said softly, I lost someone too, just in a different way. Ryan looked at her patiently. I was in a 2-year relationship with a guy who made me disappear. He didn't yell, didn't hit, but he made me feel small, worthless, like I was lucky just to have him. Ryan frowned, shaking his head. You didn't deserve that. No one does. She took a deep breath. It took me a long time to see it, but leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done. He reached across the table, gently touching her hand. No pressure, just presence. You're strong as hell, Lee. Just being able to say that out loud, that says a lot. She smiled, eyes glistening. That night, as they walked side by side along a cold Manhattan sidewalk, something shifted. They weren't just getting to know each other anymore. They were letting themselves be known, and that, somehow, felt even rarer. Some connections are born from easy laughter, others from shared silences that say everything. That week, Ryan invited Lee to visit the school library where he worked. It was a quiet Saturday morning, the city still half asleep. The building, almost empty. Brace yourself, he joked. It's just a small room that smells like old books. But Lee loved it. The worn wooden shelves, notes scribbled by students, faded posters of historical figures on the walls. Ryan sat on the floor between 2 bookcases and motioned for her to join him. She did. They sat in silence for a moment. This place saved me, you know? She looked at him, waiting for more. After Chloe died, I didn't want to do anything. I wouldn't get out of bed. I just locked myself in here to hide from the world. Lee swallowed hard. She was your sister? He nodded. More than that. She was my other half. Younger than me, full of life. The kind of person who lit up every room. She was only 21 when that guy ran the red light. He didn't cry, but his eyes carried a weight. A sadness that had settled deep. Lee leaned her shoulder gently against his. She didn't say anything, just stayed there. And you? He asked after a while. You said you lost someone too. She took a deep breath. Her chest felt tight, but she didn't want to avoid it. My grandma. She raised me. My mom left when I was little, and my dad. Never met him, so it was just her. Always her. Ryan listened, really listened. She had Alzheimer's the last few years, and the worst part wasn't watching her forget things. It was watching her forget me. Lee's voice cracked. She tried to laugh it off. Sorry, I don't usually talk about this with anyone. You can talk to me, he said softly. They stayed there a while longer. No rush. Surrounded by books and memories. Later, as they walked along a sidewalk covered in wet autumn leaves, Leah gently held onto his arm. For the first time, in a more intimate way, like she was saying, I'm here. Ryan looked at her. They both smiled, and in that quiet moment, they understood something. Pain can connect people too. When shared, it becomes a bridge, and they had just started to cross it. New York had those kinds of nights that felt straight out of a movie. Heavy skies, cold wind, a light rain falling in silence. It was a Friday. Ryan sent a short message. Want to take a walk with me tonight? Lee replied with an umbrella emoji and a simple wherever you are. They met near Central Park. She wore a thick coat, hair in a messy bun, and he had that smile warmer than any cup of coffee. They walked slowly, aimlessly. They didn't talk much. Sometimes they didn't have to. They stopped on a small bridge overlooking the lake. City lights reflected on the water, blurred by the rain. Ryan shoved his hands into his pockets and stared at the ground. "I really like you, Lee. I mean it." Her chest tightened. She thought she knew what was coming next. But there's something in me still scared. Scared of messing it all up. Scared of jumping in and falling alone. She took a deep breath. She wanted to say she understood, that she felt the same way. But instead, she said something she didn't expect. "Maybe we're waiting too long for the perfect moment. And maybe it doesn't exist." Ryan looked at her. The rain was soaking their faces, but neither of them cared. "What if it doesn't work out?" he asked quietly. "What if it does?" She replied, with a small smile. The silence between them lasted just long enough for a breath. Then he stepped closer slowly, like there was still time to turn back. But she didn't move. The kiss happened right there, in the middle of the rain. No soundtrack, no audience. Just the two of them, the city's cold, their bodies' warmth, and that one moment where everything else faded. It was a kiss of surrender. Of holding back for too long, and finally letting go. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his and whispered, "You don't have to promise anything. Just stay." And in that moment, there was no past. No fear of what was coming. Just two hearts beating faster than the rain could fall. The weeks that followed were light. For the first time in a long while, Lee felt like life was breathing with her, not against her. She and Ryan started seeing each other almost every day. Little rituals formed without planning. Cinnamon coffee every morning, nighttime walks through the city, slow conversations about everything and nothing. Then the email arrived. It was from an agency in Los Angeles, a tempting offer, higher salary, creative director role, immediate relocation. It was everything she'd said she wanted for years. Lee stared at the screen for minutes. Her chest tightened. Her mind split in half. She told Ryan that same night, sitting on a bench near the Hudson River. "It's the kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice," she said, eyes on the dark horizon. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What's your heart telling you?" She hesitated. She didn't know. "It's screaming in every direction." Ryan took a deep breath. "I'm not going to ask you to stay. That wouldn't be fair. This is your dream." She looked at him. Part of her wanted him to say the opposite. To beg. To fight for her. But he didn't. And that's when she realized he was loving her in the hardest way possible. Loving her freely. That night, she cried alone. For the doubt. For the goodbye already forming. For the fear of choosing wrong. Next day, she sent an email accepting the offer. A few days later, they said goodbye. No promises. No dramatic scenes. Just a long, honest hug. Life has a way of working things out. He whispered in her ear. She wanted to believe that, but deep down, she felt like she was walking away from something she might never find again. 2 months had passed since Lee moved to Los Angeles. Her new life was intense. A sleek office, rooftop meetings, million-dollar campaigns. From the outside, it looked like she'd made it. But inside, something was always missing. She tried to fill the emptiness with work, new places, new people. But nothing smelled like New York coffee. Nothing sounded like Ryan's laugh. One night, after a long, exhausting day, she opened an old photo app and stumbled across an image, a screenshot, of his message from their first walk. "Want to take a walk with me tonight?" She smiled and cried at the same time. And then, she made a decision. The next week, she flew back to New York. No one knew. Not even Ryan. She arrived on a Saturday morning. The city still waking up, filled with the smell of fresh bread and impatient horns. She walked straight to the gym where it had all started. She went in, took a deep breath, and yes, she walked straight into the men's locker room, opened the door. 1 second of silence. And then, there he was. Ryan stood there. Sweaty t-shirt, headphones around his neck, surprised eyes. They locked eyes. Lee stepped inside, her smile nervous. This time, I came in here on purpose. He slowly took off his headphones. You did? Yeah, because ... If life keeps throwing us into each other's path in the wrong places, maybe it's time I start looking for you in the right ones. Ryan laughed, relief flooding his face. His eyes sparkled. She walked closer, slowly, just like that first day. I didn't come here by accident. I came for you. He didn't say a word. Just pulled her into a hug that said everything. In that same locker room where everything began by mistake, they started again. This time, by choice. After that hug in the locker room, they stood still for a while. No rush, as if time had finally learned how to wait for them. Lee was the first to pull back, just enough to look into his eyes. There was something there that even words couldn't reach. Are you okay? She asked softly. Ryan nodded. But there was so much in that look. Exhaustion, longing, relief. And you? He asked back. She smiled, one of those half smiles that hide a tear just dried. I'm learning how to be okay, slowly. He took her hand. Not like someone trying to hold on, but like someone offering space. They left the gym and walked through the city like they used to, but something had changed. It wasn't the same early days spark. It was quieter, more real. They stopped by the same cafe where they'd first reconnected, sat at the same table, but now there was no nervousness, just a strange sense of belonging. She talked about LA, the pace, the glamour, the loneliness wrapped in success. I saw myself on billboards, but couldn't recognize myself in the mirror. He listened in silence, like always, then spoke about his time without her. The classes, the longer nights, the unsent messages. I thought about coming after you, but I felt like if you were going to come back, it had to be on your own. Lee held back tears. It hurt and healed all at once, and I did. They didn't talk about the future. They didn't need to. That afternoon wasn't about plans. It was about presence. About letting the others simply exist. Just as they were. At the end of the day, they walked to the subway. Stopped at the steps. People rushed around them, but between them, there was stillness. Lee cupped his face in both hands, looked deep into his eyes. This time, I'm not running. Ryan smiled, eyes glassy. This time, neither am I. And then, without hurry, they kissed again. But this kiss was different. It wasn't the kiss in the rain, or the one from the reunion. It was the kiss of two people who chose to stay. Sometimes, it's in silence without promises or certainty, where love finally finds a place to live.